today. We're in the middle of tax season. All right, I'm gonna get this, make sure everything's going live and working.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
It's noon time for me.
Oh, it's noon. Okay. Yeah, it's 11 here, so awesome nap time. So we'll text and listen. That works too. Yeah, y'all can feel free um as y'all have questions and stuff, feel free to unmute and chat with us. We love to chat with y'all and answer questions, or y'all can drop them in the chat. Either way works. We want to be able to help and support y'all. And I'm just making sure everything is live and links are where they need to be. So I apologize. It takes me a few minutes to get all this set up. But if you're new and you have not been here, this is our Bookkeeper Blueprint podcast. So we are super excited to have y'all today. Okay, Erica, you can ask. I will try to answer it. I may not be the right person for QBO payroll, but I'll try.
Okay, so I don't typically do payroll with QuickBooks Online. I usually do it with Gusto, and I've got one client that has ADP. And so this is the first time I'm dealing with payroll with a customer with QBO. And a couple questions are, does QuickBooks file the 941 and pay all the necessary taxes to the IRS and the state? Do they do all that? Or what are my responsibilities with QBO payroll that maybe like I'm used to Gusto doing and payroll and QBO doesn't do that? Like that's what my biggest question is.
So it depends on what subscription they have. So that's the biggest thing with like the biggest issue that I've seen with QuickBooks payroll is a lot of people go with the cheaper option, but the cheaper option means that now you're responsible for paying the taxes and submitting all the forms and all the things. They have different levels of subscription. So some of them QuickBooks will handle it all for you. It just depends on which one the client chose.
Okay. Well, I believe they chose the cheapest one. So how do I know how, like, I can log in there and I know what subscription they have, but how do I know what I'm responsible to do? Like, how do I know?
One, I wouldn't take care of that from a client perspective. I would let them know, like, hey, you either need to upgrade or you're gonna have to handle this piece yourself, because like liability insurance and stuff is totally different when you're handling those sort of things than what you have just for a bookkeeping business. Because there's a lot more liability that goes along with payroll taxes and stuff. But typically when you log into, they have like a tax center, and like if you're in their payroll section and stuff, it tells you like, hey, this needs to be submitted and things like that. But that also leaves, they have to make sure that they have all the information put in correctly, like all their numbers and all that stuff. So that's where, and that's if they truly chose like the same package to get the same service, Gusto is usually like
way cheaper.
Yeah,
right.
like so, but most of the time people are like, oh, this is
I remember
cheaper.
why we couldn't use Gusto though. We couldn't use Gusto because they only pay one employee and the one employee is a farm employee, and Gusto says it has a caveat that they can't do file it's not the 941, it's the 943 maybe. It's a different form in order to file for the taxes for a farm worker, and Gusto won't do it. And so QuickBooks would file that form, or you could do, and so that was why we had to use QuickBooks, because I originally didn't want to use QuickBooks. I knew Gusto would have been cheaper and a better option for them, but when we tried to set it up, that employee doesn't qualify to be able to use Gusto, which is really surprising to me, but that was the case.
Yeah, that's weird. But yeah, so now your issue though is probably definitely gonna be that, like, they'll wanna upgrade and pay for them to file all those additional forms and stuff for sure for
Okay.
them.
Okay.
Because even like that sounds like it's gonna be an additional one on top of like whatever the regular form is or whatever anyway, you know? And did y'all look at ADP at all for them?
I didn't look at ADP for them. The one client I have is a church, and it would still have been, I even with my wholesale price, it was still $60 a month plus, it's really just the one payroll a month, so it would have been $61. And I think QuickBooks payroll for the cheapest one was still cheaper than that. But
Oh
now
yeah, I'm sure.
upgrade. Now, if we need to upgrade, but even if we need to upgrade, then it's probably comparable. And so then we might as well just stay with QuickBooks because we've already got it all set
Exactly.
up. And I helped her set
Yeah.
it up, but I just wasn't sure how that worked. Like, I'm just used to Gusto doing everything. So now
Yeah.
I'm like, and ADP does the same thing. They just take care of it all. And I was just covering my bases to make sure that I knew what QuickBooks did and did not do.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So that'll kind of be and this is a perfect question for the topic that like your question kind of leads into our topic for today too. So
Oh,
it's funny that
fantastic.
yeah, it's funny that you're asking this question. But yeah, this is the perfect opportunity for you to go back to them and say like, "Hey, I need you to upgrade to this other subscription and stuff." So,
Okay. Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
yep.
Do you
You're
mind if I
welcome.
chime in for a second?
Sure.
I also have a client that's a farm in New Hampshire, and we do their payroll through QuickBooks. They actually have the QuickBooks Online Payroll Core. So, and they do file the 940 and 943s through that program.
QuickBooks does it for you,
Yes, that does.
and they pay the taxes to the necessary, like to the IRS and to the state as well.
If they have
Yes.
it set up that way, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. The only
Okay.
difference is in New Hampshire, then they're not responsible for doing unemployment tax. So in your state, it may be a little different.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's required or not. I don't think it is, and they've had an employee long enough that after so many years, state unemployment becomes like, if they haven't had any claims against them, then it's zero anyway. And I think that's probably where they're at, is that they don't pay state unemployment.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're saying that QuickBooks, I think it's the core. I'll have to look at the subscription, but I think it is core. And you're saying that QuickBooks does file all of that and sends the taxes to the appropriate agencies for you.
Yes, you just have to
Okay.
make sure that everything is filled out correctly, because if
Okay.
not, it won't work.
Right, of course. Okay, and I'm fairly like 99.9% certain that all of those numbers and agency account numbers are all in there proper.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for chiming in. I appreciate
Oh, you're
that.
welcome.
That is very helpful.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So we haven't got started yet, Sherry. So today's topic, but it kind of went along with like fires and like boundaries and all the things. So I was like, that was a perfect question anyway. So where did that put my? So today we were going to talk about how to handle last minute requests, setting boundaries with your clients and things along those lines.
So if you are new, we are the Bookkeeper Blueprint podcast. Megan and I share with you tips, tricks, all of the things that we learn and do in our own businesses that help just running our bookkeeping business better, help finding clients easier, onboarding, all of those things. And we are in the season today. So I'm Sherry and I'm with Megan. It is like the season of last minute requests. And I don't know about you, but have you ever opened your email? Like, I try not to open my email before 10 a.m. or my day gets like sidetracked. But you get those last minute requests, and it could be simple as like, hey, can you fill out this loan thing, to my world's on fire. I need my financials today for my tax repair. And you're like, I'm still waiting for bank statements. And so that is all of what we're chatting about today. So, okay. So Megan, do you have any examples of like recently for you last minute requests? You had some interesting client requests like back in December, January, but beyond that, the payroll fires and like
Oh yeah.
that client.
Yeah, definitely some last minute stepping into the role of processing payroll, bill pay, sales tax, like all kinds of sort of things with that particular client. And definitely that that particular situation taught me a lot about boundaries. I will say that, and how important it is to like definitely stand your ground and like know what you want to offer in your business. And like not everything is a fire or an emergency just because it feels like that to them. And you can charge more and all the things. So don't feel like just because like, hey, this is my price, this is what I'm charging them monthly for bookkeeping services, and they come with these additional requests, like you need to be compensated for that because that's not what you quoted them initially. If it was not in what you quoted them initially, because that's kind of what happened to me in that situation for sure.
Yeah. And unexpected demands. So like last minute requests, what Megan was facing with just unexpected, like their life is on fire. So
Yeah.
it can really feel like a tidal wave of just like, oh my gosh, I've got so much more added to my plate. And I really think that's probably how you felt, Megan.
Yeah.
So it's overwhelming, it's frustrating, it's disruptive. Like not only is like your family life like interrupted if you don't have good boundaries, like your everything gets pushed back, right? Like if you're like, I'm gonna drop everything I am doing and now do this task, like you got interrupted on whatever task you're doing because you checked email, and it's just this tidal wave and like domino effect in your life that week. So learning to manage these things will set you apart and make your business more sustainable in the future, just because you're going to be able to, you won't burn out as quickly or at all, depending on how well we set boundaries. So some of the ways that we can handle the request is just start by just knowing what your boundaries are. Knowing like, I cannot issue financials this week when you just got me stuff on Monday. Like, what is like, think those things through. Like, you hear us talk about them on the podcast, think them through. What are you going to do when someone sends you, a request on Monday? Hey, here's all my bank statements. I need these tomorrow. I'm going to go meet with my tax preparer tomorrow. My appointment's scheduled at 10. Are you going to stay up all night doing it? What's the plan? We're going to prioritize as smartly as possible. We're going to assess urgency versus importance, right? Like urgency might be, okay, a client literally just had an emergency. The person that normally runs payroll is in the hospital. Like in the hospital, it is due by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Okay, but we don't have it. Like, and they're like, I just don't know who to turn to. I don't know what to do. And this is really similar to Megan's situation. Like literally they had no one else as far as redundancy go to do it. And Megan is very, very kind. So like, what do you do? That might be urgent because it builds client relationship. Like you might want to do it. So if you do it, that might fall into urgency. Now we need to get access. I need to get on a call with you. Like, do you guys have time? Like, you're going to have to just jump in and put out the fire. Like it's also not really like what you're always going to experience. So we're going to get to some of the more normal stuff, but like that might happen. And that is up to you on if that's something you offer or could even do. Most business owners, in Megan's case, it's like the exception to the rule, like 100%. I'm like, anyway, in her case, the wife could have figured it out. Like right, Megan? Or no, maybe not. I don't know. We won't go too much into that, but
Yeah, maybe.
maybe not tech savvy, but like typically
Yeah.
business owners are willing to figure it out, and they're often involved in payroll. So that's kind of the odd exception out, but most often you're going to get, especially right now, here's my bank statements. I'm 3 months behind and I have a tax meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. I need stuff by then. I have a 2 to 4 week turnaround. Like you're 3 months behind, like you're in cleanup mode, right? Like that is now cleanup. I need 4 to 6 weeks to get you caught up. 2 weeks if it's rush fee, like there have been occasions where I could definitely do it. But as your business grows, you might not be able to, and it might not be fair to put that on your team. So you're going to really have to think these through, and they're going to change, right? You're going to have to be able to clearly communicate. So this would be number 2. So number 1, prioritize smartly. 2, communicate clearly. Ask clarifying questions. Set realistic deadlines. Like, hey, who just got me stuff? It normally takes our firm 4 to 6 weeks to catch anyone up that's over 90 days behind. Can we move that tax preparer meeting back a week? And I can get it to you in a week for sure. And here's our rush fee on it. Like you don't have to just be like pushed around by clients. We can, guys, I've done it though. I've done it. I've stayed up till midnight, 2 a.m. because a client needed it. And guess what? They never learned. They still do it. And I have to put, now I know what to say. And I'm like, yeah, no. But and then have a system. So if we have templates, if you in the Bookkeeper Blueprint, there are tons of email templates, like a lot of email templates. It's designed so that you can help set up your workflows with those email templates. And so as you start building those out, you get an email. Maybe it's there, maybe it's really one-off, and you're like, I'm going to create a template because now I've created a system to create templates and checklists and automations. So when I get this request, I plug it into the automation. I plug it into the system. And that helps me understand what to do with it. And then set boundaries, right? So Megan had alluded to offering a rush fee. Hey, it's going to take us 4 to 6 weeks to work you into our workflow and get you caught back up because you're over 90 days behind. However, we do have an opportunity. We can do it 1 to 2 weeks. Here's how much it's going to cost. Or, hey, I can do it in a week. Here's how much it's going to cost. Right? Because like, do you need help on it? Do you have the bandwidth? Do you have to hire to help get some help in getting it done? Do you already have a team member in place? Who can you turn to when something happens? Like, who can you turn to if you're in the hospital for 2 months all of a sudden? And you can always offer alternative solutions. Okay. Hey, I can't run payroll for you last minute like this. But I know your payroll company can walk you through it. So let's, here's their number. Please give them a call first. Right. Things like that. So, but I have had clients who, this client I told you about just a second ago that still hasn't learned to this day. He sent me a request at like 8 p.m. I need this tomorrow. Guys, when I was starting my business though, I was like so eager to work or so eager to get it done that I did do it. I remember like 2 a.m. mornings frequently. Most often with this guy, like, we don't have to panic. We don't even have to do it. We can simply start to apply a process. Something like setting a realistic timeline. Often just saying, hey, to do this right, I cannot get this to you tomorrow morning. It will take us minimum 48 hours. So I can have it back to you Thursday, Friday. Does that sound good? Okay, great. Because guess what? They can go back to their tax preparer. Hey, I'm not ready. I'm so sorry. I scheduled this meeting. Let's reschedule. there might be ramifications of that. The taxpayer might be, okay, now we're filing an extension or something like that. Like there might be things that the business owner doesn't want, but they will learn better from those boundaries than like rewarding the bad behavior, if that makes sense. Often, I take the stance, and not all bookkeepers do this, but I take the stance, and I think Megan, you might take the stance too sometimes. They don't know. They're not trying to be unrealistic. They're not trying to be some are trying to be over demanding, but oftentimes they just don't know. They just got themselves into a bind. They didn't know what all it took. They were doing it. It was good enough. They got it to their tax preparer. Now they're working with you because they want it done right. So that's why when we take notes in that onboarding, and so if you didn't grab that download last week for what to ask in onboarding, let me grab it for you.
I have it pulled up actually, Sherry.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I'm like,
because I had it for something else earlier.
Thanks for that. But in this questionnaire, you're going to start to learn the whole point of asking these questions. So it's a free download, free checklist for you. Your ultimate goal is to learn, why are they hiring a bookkeeper now? Why are they switching bookkeepers? What is it that they're trying to solve? You're going to note this. And when they ask you for that last minute request, you're going to remind them of why they hired you. Hey, you hired me because you were really concerned about having accurate financials. I cannot give you accurate financials in 12 hours. That's not fair to you. That's not like, you don't have to say like, that's not fair to you. That's not fair to me. But like, you need to know that. You just simply say, I cannot achieve XYZ result in this time frame. We're going to do it in this time frame. Does that work for you? And if you don't know how to word stuff, ChatGPT is your friend. Tell it what voice you want to use and then pretty it up into your own voice. Megan, anything else? Like I experience this weekly though with clients. Like there's always something that comes up where I had someone over the weekend send me a document they needed me to look at urgently. I didn't see the email. They contacted me on Tuesday. Did you see this? I need it. And we got to the point where it was like, okay, by the end of the week, like to add you to my to-do list this week, realistically, I cannot promise you until the end of the week. Like it's February. Like,
right.
Some weeks are good in February. Other weeks are like, I am reviewing all of my closes. We have sales tax, we have payroll, we have invoices, and I have other stuff. Like it's just all the tasks. And that's why you hire a team and do stuff. But guess what? It's also February. People get sick, people get injured. Whole families go down with the flu. Like life happens. And so having redundancy on your own part, but often we're, ourselves getting started. And so, no, client, you just sent me a request. I am out with the stomach bug. So don't forget, if you don't know how to set up automatic reminders, I have a training. I am 100% sure it is in the course. If it is not, I will re-record it and put it in the course. But I have a training on how to use Google Workspace. It's either in the co-working call or the course. I'm happy to do another one. Let me know if you guys want that. Where you can really utilize Google Workspace to send those automatic reminders. You can put announcements in keeper.app. We use Keeper. Announcements. Hey, expect delay with your financials. My whole family's out with the stomach bug. Sorry for the inconvenience. Done. Right? Like, give yourself permission to heal. Give yourself permission, like, especially if you're a solopreneur doing this or a freelancer doing this, you sometimes just have to speak up for yourself. You had a client, you had a coach tell you something.
I was good. Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I had a coach tell me that this has been a couple years now, I guess, and life happened. Like literally, it was stuff back to back to back, and like emergency stuff happening in life. And I was like struggling to get things ready. It was March or whatever, tax season, like all the things. And she told me, like, one of the things she told me was like, it's okay to tell the clients that exact thing, like what life happened, I'm gonna get it to you on whenever, and just kind of keep them updated. Because one thing she told me, and I never thought about it from that way, because your clients are probably in the same position you are at some point in time, and then they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed, like freaking out, what do I do? How do I get this to whoever their customers, their clients are? So now you're kind of giving them permission to do the same. Like, it is okay, because life does happen. Sometimes things do come up and you can't meet whatever the expectations are. And then another thing, she like, sometimes the expectations aren't necessarily even from our clients, it's expectations that we just put on ourselves to get it done by these certain dates and stuff. Then maybe your clients aren't even concerned to get that report by the 15th or the 20th of the month. They just want it by the end of the month, or whatever the case is. So communication is definitely key, like letting them know those things for sure.
And you'll know the ones who like really wanted it. They're the ones gonna be like, oh yeah, can you get it to me ASAP? And you're just gonna prioritize them when you get it back. Right? Like, you can't change what happened or whatever's going on. Like, so I guess kind of just to recap, you're gonna prioritize, you're gonna make communication. Guys, if communication is not one of like your key pillars in your business, please write it down. Make it one of your key pillars. Over communicating just enough, whatever stance you want to take, but communicate with your clients is going to really set you apart. I want to say from like 90% of bookkeepers, but that might be too high, but it might not be. Like, the number one issue I have is my bookkeeper doesn't communicate. My bookkeeper ghosted me. My bookkeeper doesn't whatever. And that is simply communication, right? That is simply setting boundaries. So you're going to prioritize, you're going to communicate, you're going to set boundaries. You're going to make communication one of your key pillars. If you haven't read Clockwork, go read Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. Oh, Megan, do we have the blog?
I can pull it up real quick.
Sorry. I might be able to too. But that book will talk to you about why those pillars are important too. And ultimately, remember that the best professionals aren't the ones that say yes to everything. Best bookkeepers aren't the ones who say yes to every project, every request that comes across their desk. So I see a lot of you guys are talking about payroll, which I'm going to love to jump into in just a second because I have opinions. But you don't have to say yes to every person who wants to give you money. Not all money is worth it. It's just not. But the best bookkeeper are the ones that handle and manage their requests that come in strategically, with purpose, with intention, with some sort of planned action. So how do you handle last minute requests? I would love to hear from you. If you are listening to the replay, let us know wherever you're watching. If you are live with us, I would love to know. Have you dealt with last minute requests? Have you been just railroaded by them? Or do you feel like you have a plan of action? Yeah. And then if you haven't caught last week's episode or gotten that download, we talked just about like questions to ask a potential client that really sets the tone for your onboarding, for your client expectations. So definitely go grab that. So Megan also dropped the reading list that we have, and Mike Michalowicz's books are on there because they're my favorites. Top favorites. There's a couple of others that go up there with them. But so now if you guys have questions or things that you're trying to figure out in your business, we would love to brainstorm with you, answer them. I saw a lot of you guys were talking about payroll. Lynetta, payroll and I see Megan responded, payroll you can definitely have done by a third party. So like I have, like if I'm slow and someone's like, hey, I just don't know what I'm doing, I go set them up in Gusto because I get an affiliate too. And so I get like free payroll for my own firm. So I'll go set them up and then show them how to run it and let them go like on their own. So I do payroll setups or like quick QBO setups, stuff like that. You could, if you're like, I just need a win, you could definitely do it using something like Gusto as a one-off client. But I do not, I agree with Megan. I do not do any ad hoc services outside of like, I have to be at least doing your bookkeeping, just because I found that it just wasn't worth the time, and payroll takes a lot more time than, like, it sometimes lowers your hourly rate. And can be hard. Like for me, I have young kids. So if we all goes down with the stomach bug, right, I'm not just taking care of myself. I'm gone for the week, right? Like it's gonna go through the house or something. So I need to like knock on wood. We haven't had the stomach bug in a really long time. So
Yeah.
but does that make sense? Like if I go, like I have to hire someone to do payroll, and I do have someone on my team specifically designed to cover those weekly tasks. But if she goes down, right, like we have redundancy, right? I'm a solo business person. I'm try really hard to remind them along the way that there will be a delay when I get the information, and I'm on a schedule and have to keep all my commitments to check in. Yep. Good idea, Liz. Anna says, for setting up a client on Gusto, do they verify their own I-9? I feel like did we talk about this in Boxer yesterday, Ian?
I thought we did.
Maybe not. So the I-9 form, if you guys don't know what it is, I'm gonna pull it up for you. Oh, that is not the site I want to go to. Guys, it like brought up like Wikipedia. So here's what the I-9 looks like if you are watching. And so I guess, Anna, first question, have you read through this form? Okay. So this is employment eligibility verification. This is an employee that this is a form that the employee fills out, and then the employer reviews. So employers or their authorized representatives must complete and sign within 3 business days after the employee's first day of employment, or must physically examine consented. So like typically if they're getting this form, they're getting, and I used to do this in one of my corporate jobs, they're getting like an ID or passport, they're getting information. So like this gives you very specific like things. I would not take the liability on for this. So I would check your, where is your liability insurance covering all of those things. The reason I use Gusto is because it is between the employee and the employer. Now I know Sunshine, you have HR experience. I think you're on the call today. So from my perspective, I am not their HR person. I am not filling that role. So I put it back to them in Gusto. Like there's a reason I use Gusto and I send the employer and the employee through it. I am just their bookkeeper. Okay.
Yeah, I gave Anna my input earlier, but I can give it for everybody else who didn't hear that. Is legally the employer has to have a binder of I-9s on site if they have employees. So you doing it where you're at is pointless because they have to be the one to verify it. And there's also a lot of legal things that go with it, how to fill that form out properly. And if you don't know how to do it, I wouldn't do it. Because I mean, I took a class. One of my classes was actually included how to fill these forms out.
I agree. I was formally trained. We had a binder. We had to scan, like we really had to verify IDs, all of those things. So Anna, it's not something I do, if that helps. So, and I don't want to like it's.
And I do HR too. So I do it for the people who need it, but I do it like I charge a large amount because I'm going on site to do it. Because I'm not doing it virtually because that's kind of the point. Is the binder or the I-9 is designed for immigration and social security verification. So you don't have that actual paperwork in front of you. You're then defeating the purpose of the form. So that's my thing. But yeah, I did tell Anna that already. So she knew that, but yeah,
No, you're good, Anna. And that's why we use third parties. So I think we covered that. Anna, if you have more questions on that, we can go deeper in Voxer. You're in the Bookkeeper Blueprint Premier, so we can go deeper in Voxer today if you would like on that. Lynetta, you asked for the onboarding questions. Here's that link one more time for you. And actually I can just respond to your question there. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Yes, I do. There we go. Okay. And there are times to definitely, you can offer advisory, you can offer higher level services as you get certifications and trained on different things. Most of you guys listening to this podcast, it's okay to have a basic bookkeeping business. We were just talking, we have someone in the Bookkeeper Blueprint, who I was talking to her, and she truly has like the ideal business. I love her business setup. She just does basic bookkeeping. She doesn't have payroll. She doesn't do invoicing. She doesn't do sales tax. None of those things that some of you guys feel obligated to say yes to, she doesn't do. She doesn't do. And she has a very lovely business. Melinda says, when you charge to set up client in Gusto, what do you all do for them? Do you input their tax info? Okay, so this is a little interesting. So with Gusto, there's a couple ways you can do it. Anytime I can turn it back on the client, I do that. So Gusto will actually call the client and ask them to set it up. Like Gusto is really eager for those clients. If the client at all is able and functional, they do the setup. If I have a client who is like, there's some individuals who just can't. Like, Megan, I don't know what you would say to that. Like
Yeah.
your person over there. Megan just rolled her eyes if y'all didn't see that. So
Yeah.
for anyone listening to audio, then I can get on and I will get on a call. Like I will email them. This is the information I need. Here's where you go. Like I literally just did this for a client. Hey, you have to have this state number. You have to have the state unemployment number for the state that they were in. Here's where you go to fill this out. So they did that. They will be getting that information this week, but we could go ahead and set up payroll. Right. So like I had them get in. I find it helpful for them to know what's going on with payroll. Like I do not enjoy working with the business owners who are like, my bookkeeper set it up. I don't know what I'm doing. Kind of drives me a little crazy because I'm like, but I need this number. Those are also the clients who 18 months later get like a audit or a request or, hey, you owe this bill. And they're like, aren't you taking care of this? And you're like, no, this is you. And I'm no longer your bookkeeper. Like you haven't run payroll in 18 months. This is you. So there's that. But so it really it's kind of dependent on the client. If they are just doing Gusto, like I had mentioned earlier, I say, hey, here's your next step. Gusto is going to call you. Gusto is going to set you up. Gusto can also, if they don't know how to do their state IDs, Gusto can do that for them. They can, it's a small fee. It's like $150 or something. So don't quote me on that number, but it's a small-ish fee for most of them. So yeah, I prefer to have them enter it. And most of my clients, like they want to run payroll themselves. And I'm just like overseeing it and doing that final like reconciliation, making sure everything's working together and making sure everything's being filed and that Gusto knows what they're doing and all of those things.
Can I chime in a little bit too? I do have the employer do all the login, but I also have them check in with me annually about their UI changes, the unemployment insurance percentage, and I usually make sure that gets put in properly, just because they forget about it all the time. Yeah,
and Gusto is really good about sending emails and reminding. So like if there is a state update,
in Oregon it changes every year.
Yeah, that's just a system. Yeah, most states change every year, and it's just a system update. And And then Anna, you said, I'm currently doing that. I input the business and yeah. So then, I mean, he can reach out to Gusto during the onboarding with questions. So he might be reaching out to you more than needed. Yeah, Anna, feel free to circle back in Boxer. I would love to hear more of this story in terms of like what's going on. Yeah. And he might be in a state that like has more requirements going on. Okay, last question, I think is, well, sorry, I'm reading. Is nonprofit bookkeeping a huge difference from regular bookkeeping? Yes, it is. I mean, in principle, like an expense is going to be coded to an expense, right? Money in is going to be recorded to donations, money in, right? But it really depends on what type of nonprofit. A 501c3 is going to be different than a 501c8. Like, who's filing their 990? How much do they know? Do they have grants? Do they not? Nonprofit it's a thing to learn. So I used to audit nonprofits, like government on nonprofits. We did a lot of like unions and churches. So 501c3 churches often, but 501c8 churches, yes, you can have a 501c8, aren't required to file a 990, but they still need to track their donations. They still need to send donation receipts. And so it's just something different to learn. To tell you how big of a difference, in the last CPA firm I worked at where I was an auditor, so public accounting, I did financial statements. I moved from the nonprofit at the last CPA firm I worked at before then, and I moved to a bigger CPA firm so I would touch more things. Like if you're working at like a big four, you're touching very few clients, but I wanted more financial experience. I moved there and I was in for-profit. Well, us for-profit people didn't touch nonprofit people. Like there were two completely different departments in tax and in the financial because they're so different. And the continuing educations are different for CPAs. Like the tax forms are different. It's all different. Like the only similarity is you click the same buttons in QuickBooks Online, right? Like add an expense. I'm going to write a check. I'm going to reconcile. Those are the same. Does that make sense? But like the compliance behind it is very different. Okay. Melinda says, I had a client enter their UI rate incorrectly and they set up their Gusto account and we caught that when they sent me info about the 2025 rate. Yep. So the Bookkeeper Blueprint focuses on for-profit. We do not have nonprofit training. And CB for us, we do have some coaches that have nonprofit experience and we can do like a high level. Often we're sending you back to their CPA just because a lot of times the clients don't know. And so when we're asking you questions, we get a bunch of I don't knows. And so we're sending you back to their CPA. So, absolutely. I didn't see any questions in the Facebook group, Megan, for us to answer today. Did you?
No. I can go double check though.
If you're good. Guys, if you have questions that come up over the week, there is a guide section where you can submit Q&A questions. If you're like, hey, I want to get this answered on the call, we'd be happy to do that as you're thinking about it. And so we check that on the call. Yeah, there you go. My brain just went blank. I was thinking about next week. We have a lot of fun going on next week in the Facebook group. So most of all of you are in the Facebook group. That's how you're finding this call. That's how you're getting on. But if you want to invite anyone to the Facebook group, we have some fun activities going on next week. The podcast will be fun. All of those. So we're kind of changing it up next week a little bit. And we just wrapped up like a push for the Bookkeeper Blueprint where we had quite a few people enroll in that. And that is fun. So if you're looking for community and inside of your bookkeeping business, if you're looking for, I know for me, when I left corporate and then started my own business, I didn't have any people. Sunshine, there is so much fun to be had for bookkeepers. We are not boring. Wrong place. You're not boring either. Have you seen your hair? So, yeah. But, so yeah, we're having some fun next week. But if you're looking, so like when I left, I didn't have other coworkers to like brainstorm. What did this client just do? Like, it's over here, but we don't see it over here. What are we missing? Like, are we missing a piece of software? Things like that. And like now, especially like teaching, often from an accounting standpoint, I can kind of figure it out. But like, there's still some things that it's like, how would you communicate to this client? Is there a better way to use this software? And it's all the other stuff running a business. What do I need to run payroll? Right? Like if you've never run payroll before, you're like, I've done it for clients, but now it's me and it feels different and it feels scary. And that's what we're here for. So we're here to help you understand the why behind what you're doing, not just click the buttons. I don't know how many bookkeepers so I'm often when I'm helping a bookkeeper, the previous bookkeeper, you're like, where did you get training from? Like I just encountered a bookkeeper. So not the bookkeeper I was working with. The bookkeeper that's doing the books is going back and changing bill dates. So like a bill happens, a payment is made, but she's changing the payment is made. So like a bill is sent in January, it's paid in February. She is changing that February date back to January. And so she's really scared when anyone touches her reconciliation because obviously it's changing the reconciliation and it's not proper cash accounting. It's not proper GAAP accounting, which everyone in the US follows. We want to help you prevent doing those mistakes. We found people from other programs that aren't being taught the why behind it. And I'm really big on knowing the why because you can't review well until you start to understand the story that the financials are telling you. So that is kind of our mission, is really understanding that from an accounting perspective. How deep you go is up to you, but at least understanding to an extent, like, so that you're doing good bookkeeping, right? We want to understand what is missing. What are we looking for before we send the financials out? I love how Megan describes like when she started her bookkeeping business, she didn't have bookkeeping experience, but she knew she wasn't going to let a client down, which meant she asked a lot of questions, and there is no stupid question. Absolutely. Okay, Erica has a quick question. Okay, Erica, what is your question about closing out owner's equity?
Yes, so I've always been told and taught that you clear out the owner's draw and owner's investment to retained earnings at the beginning of the year for the year prior. I just had a CPA tell me, no, you never touch the retained earnings. You don't ever do that. Who taught you that? Why are you doing that? And now I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this if that is the case? And why would she say never touch the retained earnings? Like, I guess I don't understand the why behind why you would do that, and why is she making it such a big deal that you shouldn't?
Because you never touch retained earnings.
Okay, so why are we told to clear it to retained earnings then?
Yep. So
Or was I told
bookkeepers are
incorrectly?
most bookkeepers are touching retained earnings more than what you're doing there. Most bookkeepers are saying, oh, hey, there's a mistake on the books. I'm just going to hit it retained earnings.
Okay.
Don't do that if you're doing that. The reason
No.
you're doing that is so that it matches retained earnings if you're an S Corp. So if you're a
Okay.
single member S Corp, that's how it matches retained earnings. Some
Okay, what if-
CPAs don't want you to do that. They want to see
Okay.
the equity and then they want to see retained earnings. So retained earnings being the accumulation of just net income.
Okay. So
And I
could
want to track it separately. But it's
could
not
you-
wrong to hit it.
Okay. So could you make like a parent, like for instance, a owner's equity carryover account, and in order to clear the owner's
It would be capital.
contribution and distribution, but what if it's not an S corp and these are just single member LLCs that are, filing on a Schedule C? They're not filing as an S corp.
Then they really don't have a balance sheet. There's nothing to tie it to. So yeah, you could close it out to like capital.
Okay.
But I mean, it is the retained earnings. Yeah.
Okay. So you could do it in that case if it's just a single member LLC and they're not filing as an S corp. You could still do it to retain earnings, or you could do it to capital. Like it wouldn't matter either way in that case.
It really doesn't, as long as you and the CPA are on the same page. The thing with CPAs,
You ask 10 of
Is
them
a
and you'll
lot of
get 10
them like
different
to argue.
answers. Yes.
a lot of them,
Exactly.
they worked really hard for that CPA license. The only reason I didn't finish it was I wanted to be a mom and I was tired of
Right.
working so many hours. So I stopped doing the test. I just stopped. I
Yeah.
can make money without the CPA license and decided to just do that. Some CPAs are just stuck in their ways. But a lot of CPAs don't do bookkeeping. Megan, you have a
Right.
great story with this.
Yeah. Most of the
Yeah,
CPAs don't touch the books, and I want those two accounts to be cleared so that we can see what's going on in those accounts
So do owners
year over year.
Owner's
Okay.
capital. So
Okay.
you're gonna make a parent account. So it's owner's equity.
Okay.
Um,
But call it owner's capital.
you could also just use if you already have like owner's equity, you can just use owner's equity. Capital can get really confusing if you don't fully understand what I'm saying by that. And we just did a lovely call on this in the co-working call, where I went in depth on equity because it's so confusing and it changes depending on their entity type. For you though, owner's capital might be owner's investment into the business. So
Okay.
what I mean by that, not just the money hey, I bought a printer with my own money and I put it in the business. I'm talking about they put $10,000 in when they started, and that's what they put on their LLC. If they were to take 10,000 back out as a return of capital, then we hit that account. So you might actually just be hitting owner's equity. It really depends on what's going on with the business.
Okay. And when
what's
you say
helpful
make it a
for-
parent account, would the owner's distribution and owner's contribution be sub accounts to that parent account then?
Mhm.
It would be. Okay.
Yep. And then just be very clear. The clearer you are with what you're doing, the more it will make sense to a CPA.
Okay.
But that was just a CPA being a CPA.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. So I decided I'm just not going to mess with those for any of my clients that have her. I'm not going to mess with those accounts, and I'm just going to let them be.
Yep, we just adjust to the CPA. It's not worth fighting with them
No.
over. At the end of the day, accounting is accounting. And I love to talk about equity because equity is just a thing. It's a thing. And it's a thing I want you guys to understand. But when you get into it's not worth it. That's why I'm not a CPA. Let's be real.
Thank you.
It's not worth it. So
Okay. Thank you for that.
whatever
I
she
appreciate it.
wants. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Great.
Sounds good.
Happy to do it. That's how I feel on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And if something else comes up, Erica, I'm here to help. And I did someone asked a question in the Facebook group this week. When I respond, I said owner's equity. I actually meant retained earnings, but in depending on the situation, you might if it's a partnership, you're going to hit partnership capital accounts and you're going to tie it to the partnership tax return. I'm always happy to, maybe we should do a free training, not free, we should do like a
One of
group
the paid
training.
training, yeah.
Because it was really good on the co-working call. Maybe we need to do it.
And
everyone else,
y'all
but
just
we can spend
like,
years on equity.
yeah, and just to circle back, Sherry, talking about the co-working call, we have done updates to the group and stuff like that, because there is a lot of that kind of stuff that needs to be going into that depth more, and like a lot of people needed help around balance sheet and different things like that recently. So Sherry has been doing a lot of trainings on one of the co-working calls every week. So if you're not in the group and you want to be a part of that, there's so much information, not only the course, but you get some live trainings and recordings too.
And then as far as if you want to re-listen to anything we said here or any of our prior episodes, you can find us at podcast.thebookkeeperblueprint.com. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to see faces or see what we share on our screens, things like that. But both of those places are a great way to find those recordings for those. Cool, yeah.
I wanted to say something. Can I say something really quick? I'm sorry.
Yes,
but
Mhm.
I just joined and I've been an accountant for several years and I'm a bookkeeper and I'm going on my own. And I have to say that the resources in that CV 4S, their paid program is, I'm overwhelmed and excited because there's things I'm learning about that I forgot. And there's things I'm learning about that I just kind of didn't grasp the same way. So if you're on the edge, join me because it's fun.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that.
absolutely. And we're always adding stuff. So if all of a sudden, sometimes we get a group of bookkeepers that are new and they're like, wait, I have this question. And so we will always deep dive into wherever you at, wherever
you're
you
at.
are at. And really, we really try to tailor it to what you guys need. We change stuff all the time based on what is the current group need. A lot of students have been with us for over like 3 years now, since the very beginning, and they're successful bookkeepers. But it's when they get a new client and they've never used House Call Pro and they've heard us talk about it, right? Like they're like, oh, let me set this up correctly, and it saves them time, right? Lynetta, feel free to schedule a sales call. We have quite a few different options that that definitely do not break the bank. So if you're like, hey, I want to join in some capacity, just reach out to us. We've been there. My entire business, I 100% made the business pay for everything. So there were no extra funds. So 100%. And then keep coming to this call. Like this call alone can help get you to your first client. It's, if you want to get there faster, sometimes that it's helpful to go ahead and join in some capacity. Other times it's the funds aren't there until I get a client. So let's work on these calls to get you a client and then figure out how to support you after that. Does that make sense? Like, but I'm a big proponent of letting the business pay for yourself and then just knowing where to get the right investment. Like, how do we invest in the business so it grows? I didn't hire a coach for the first year. And I finally got to the point where I was like, I have so many questions. And but we can talk to you about like, what are you actually looking for? And is it a right fit? The first program I joined was not a right fit. And they knew that they weren't a right fit based on my questions. So I kind of felt a little, so we'll tell you. We'll tell you. Okay. Well, I will see you guys next week. And if you're in the Facebook group, prepare. Megan, there's going to be some extra posts. So make sure you're seeing those next week, starting on like Monday.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
We'll make an announcement Sunday probably.
well, yeah, sounds good. Okay. See you
All
guys
right.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.